welcome to another day in my life vlog. Now today I have a lot of fun writing stuff to do. I have some writing admin. I want to work on project Spiegeltent. I'm hoping that it's going to be a nice productive day today. I've got my to-do list all written out and I'm hoping that I can just get a bunch of eclectic things done this morning and then do a bunch of novel work tonight. I will say not a terribly peaceful writing environment today because there's a lot of construction going on outside, so if you hear random banging, shrieking noises, no crime is being committed. There's just a very noisy building being built next door, and I'm hoping to maybe pop out and go to the library because it's been a little while since I've sat in the library and done some, well, it's been a while since I've gone to the particular library that I want to go to do some writing today, so I think that would be nice. I did all of my prep work yesterday. I did some like plotting and planning for project Spiegeltent. I kind of find that every now and then when I'm in the very first draft of a story, I need to sit down and rearrange some things, so I did a bunch of that work last night after I finished work yesterday, so I do feel ready and raring to go for today, which is really good. I got a good night's sleep last night. I did some Pilates this morning. Hopefully it's going to be a lovely day. So let's jump to my desk and I can tell you guys the plan for what we're going to do today. Hopefully you can hear me okay because the aircon is up really high. Never mind the fact that we have this massive industrial fan behind us. It was 42 degrees yesterday. It was so warm. Tried to go for a walk yesterday, but the UV was in the ultra extreme range. Wasn't a good time. I turned around and went back inside pretty quickly. What are we going to be doing today? Let me pull up my Notion and I can have a look. The main thing I want to do today, mostly in the afternoon, I think, is work on chapter 3 of Project Spiegeltent. That's probably going to take up most of my day. I want to put at least 4 or 5 hours of writing work into that. I've got some notes for what I want to do for chapter 3. I wrote a bunch, I deleted a bunch. This is my way. If you're new here, hello, my name is Christy. I'm currently working on an adult fantasy novel which is going by the alias of Project Spiegeltent, and this story is kind of like an arty, gothic, performing arts story about a young woman who works for a creepy organization and stuff starts going wrong, and I want it to be about 70,000 words, and I'm in the very early stages of writing this story. I'm hoping to have about 13 chapters roughly because I think 13 is a fun number. Have been going round and round in circles a little bit trying to work out how to get from A to B. So I'm currently at B. I need to get to C, D, and E. I've said already that the first early bits of this story are really clear to me, but it's kind of just getting into the fun bit of the story, which I'm just trying to work out the best way to do that because this is the very first time that I'm writing a novel that's not entirely secondary world. This story is set in the real world, pretty much in the real world, in real world Adelaide, but has weird stuff going on, more along the magical realism, urban fantasy kind of vibe. And then before I get onto the actual writing of chapter 3, I also have some writing admin stuff to do. There's something I'd like to apply for, like a cool writing opportunity thingy, which I think kind of suits me and kind of suits the research I need to do for Project Spiegeltent, so I'd like to write the application for that. I have a couple of articles I'd like to read to just slowly keep my research ticking along. I have some notes to write up because I've been reading this book called Philosophies on Art and Beauty, Plato to Heidegger, I think is the name of the title. Like it's just a compilation of different philosophers talking about art and beauty, and because my novel is exploring art, I've been reading this book, and so I have some notes to write on that because I've been finding particularly the Plato passages to be really interesting. And then I need to get through some emails, and then I actually have a really fun task. I have a voice recording thing I need to do, which I'll tell you about soon. But yeah, let's get into some Pomodoro work sprints. This is the easiest way to get myself working at the beginning of the day to sort of get my brain concentrating, have this little visual timer. So I think I'm gonna set the timer for 25 minutes to begin with, just do a 20-minute sprint to get into it, get up, do something quickly, come back, and I'll just start off my work day doing that. It is now 11:35 a.m. Surprisingly, I got through that application quite quickly. I always think these things are going to take a really long time, and then because when I worked in the arts, I did so much like grant writing and applications and things like that. That kind of writing, like professional writing, is like pretty easy and kind of fun to do. Like I remember, I think I've said this before, but one of my favorite tasks back when I worked in marketing was writing the terms and conditions for competitions, because it was just turn your brain off and just type. Like it was just like really, really easy kind of stuff. And this kind of felt like that. I really only intended to do like 45 minutes, rough first draft, but I think I actually wrote most of the application in that time. So pretty pleased with that. Emails are all done. Research and all of the notes I wanted to type up today are done. There is, of course, always so much more I could be doing in terms of research. There's other notes I haven't typed up yet. There's quotes I also want to put into my commonplace book as well, because I found some really fun quotes out of reading this stuff on Plato that I've been reading. Some really interesting ideas on how people used to think about art, this kind of idea that people themselves weren't geniuses, but they had geniuses, and that there were two different types of creativity. And if you did the kind of creativity, or say for example, if you're a painter and your art was imitative, say for example, you're painting landscapes or you're painting still lifes and you're actually just copying something that's in front of you, that's like a more explainable kind of creativity. But if you were creating something from nothing, then that had to be some kind of divine intervention, like the gods were actually helping you in some way with that kind of creativity. And so just reading about this has been really interesting. But now I'm really excited because I have some audio story recording, so I can get out my microphone and start setting this up. Now some of you might remember, if you watched a vlog that I put out a few vlogs ago, where I was speaking about writer's block and how that's impacted this novel I'm currently working on. And basically the thing that really helped me kind of kill my writer's block, one Monday a few weeks ago, I sat down and I wrote this short story called The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts, and it's my favorite short story I've written in a long time. The story just came very naturally and easily. I really liked the characters. I'm really excited to share it with you guys, which brings me to the sponsor of this video, which is Law Library. Law Library are a really exciting new short story platform who reached out to me, who wanted to publish one of my short stories, and I wrote The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts, which is about an elderly man named Salvador who works at a hotel where the ghosts are quite hungry. Like I had to look up a 1920s ginger nut biscuit recipe for this story, which was a lot of fun. A bunch of booktubers have come together and have written stories for this platform. I really enjoyed reading Jenny's story. So Jenny from This Story Ain't Over, which is called Weak and Wicked. I love Law Library's Zero AI policy. They're committed to keeping everything authentically human. They're also illustrating all of our stories, and when I got the cover for The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts, I just about lost my mind. It was so cute. I actually got a little bit teary. It's just beautiful. The artist did such an amazing job with it. There's also little illustrations throughout the story, and also if you're an audiobook lover, I am about to record the audio for this story as well, so there's going to be an audio track of me reading. I also love how incredibly transparent they are, and the fact that a portion of your membership goes directly to supporting creators, writers, and artists. If you're interested in checking out my short story, The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts, please feel free to click the link in the description down below and check out Law Library. I can't wait to hear what you guys think of the story. I'm excited now to get going on the audio recording for this, so let me pull up The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts and I can share the first tiny little bit of the story with you. So as I said, the story is about an elderly man whose name is Salvador, and he's quite brisk and he knows what he likes and he knows who he is and takes a lot of pride in his work at the hotel, and so he was really fun to write about as a character. Let me go turn off the aircon so the audio isn't ruined. If I were better at this, I probably would put like a towel or something down to absorb more of the sound, but it is what it is. Okay, ready? Let's start recording. So, The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts by Christy Ann Jones. There is a man in room 1203 who's... I've already made a mistake. And although I added only the briefest There is a man in room 1203 whose name is George S. Larson, and he has lost his hat. It's a Panama hat, I'm given to understand, asphodel white with a ruby band around the brim from which pokes the feather of a crow. It was his pet, the crow, Delilah. She lived 13 years, although I cannot recall how I know. Found that hat yet, Sal? Jill asked me this as I took my seat in the tea room. The old cup in my hand held an underbrewed Yorkshire, and although I added only the briefest dash of milk to compensate, the colour remained quite wrong. I drank it anyway and burnt my mouth. It did not hurt. Not yet, I said, but I will. The bell above the refrigerator tolled. Just past 10 o'clock, midwinter light looming dankly through the kitchen windows, and barely a bite into my ginger nut biscuit, and that was that. Off again, tea break over, that's my way. Trotting out of the kitchen and through the corridor and into the lobby as if I had heard a gunshot. Starting stools and fellow fillies left behind in the mud. Remember Me was my favourite last year. Always quick off the shot. Never won, of course. My horses never do. I found Mrs. Duval, the hotel manager, stood behind the desk, watching the young receptionist tracking mud across the William Morris rug. She was fond of that rug, her little strawberry thieves, the thrushes mirrored in gold and green. Now they were scuffed. I could not help it. I smiled. I was that lad once. I remember my own Mrs. Duval, ever so many years ago, a stern woman who frightened me something terrible at first, but for whom I grew a keen fondness quickly after. Mrs. Keyes was her name. I thought of her as I watched this lad clock eyes with Clarissa. To me she was simply Clary. I never took to that new surname of hers, Duval. To this lad, however, she was not Clarissa, nor Clary. She was judge, jury, and executioner. Also, perhaps, God. Now the lad saw his sin. "Oh," he said, "I'm sorry, the rug." Clarissa turned to me instead. Her eyes were the same antique green as the vines before the lad had spoiled them with his boots. These eyes warmed a little as she looked on me, and I saw in those irises her myriad histories, the woman she was before her children stopped calling, before her hair turned white, before her name became Duval, a ghost of a young girl picking strawberries by a pond, reading about a boy from Kensington Gardens. The woman in 504 is smoking again. "Right away, ma'am." I slapped my hand on the countertop and off I was. I felt a little sorry for the young receptionist. This will learn him. Along the carpets, up the stairs, past the wainscoting and dead petals and dirty clothes in their baskets, past the windows which revealed framed vistas of the gloomy rooftops of London. I would complain about my arthritic knees, but it's been many a year since those have bothered me. "Miss Kingsley?" I knocked upon the door. "Miss Kingsley, might I come in?" Hello, it is now just past 5:30 and I am home, and I was working really well at the library. I got a lot of stuff done. So I'm going to keep going with writing. Now the thing for today is that the progress, it doesn't look like there's a lot of progress. I'm really only halfway through chapter 3 just because there's a lot of stop-start here. Like, one of the things that I really struggle with writing is I always want to put too many things in. I always want too many characters, too many concepts, too many ideas. And in addition to that, I love the nitty-gritty of describing things and characterization and all the details that go along with that. And given the feedback that I've gotten for my writing from so many different places now, I know that that's one of my strengths as a writer. I have been told that my writing is very atmospheric and imagery heavy and character driven, and those are the things that I'm good at. But the thing is that I just want to put everything in. I want to overwrite everything. I want every story to be a bazillion words long. And with this particular story, I really am challenging myself to keep it to quite a shorter word count for me. So 70,000 words, not a short word count, but for me that is quite a bit shorter than what I am used to. Alright, this is really quite heavy. I'm gonna put you guys on a tripod. All I did was get out my tripod and I've already lost my train of thought. I think I was saying something to the effect of, I never know, structure. So the structure of where things are supposed to sit in my mind of, this is when this big character thing happens, this is when this big character thing should happen. I know that I want X to happen by around 10,000 words. I know I want Y to happen by around 17-ish thousand words. Just the basic maths of that. It takes ever so many words to introduce and explore each new side character. There's only so many characters I can have introduced by a certain point, and anyway, it's just a matter of problem solving and feeling my way and trying to kind of work out exactly what I want to do. Like, I feel like I'm a really instinctual writer, and even now, even though I've described my process a lot, I still get asked all the time, like, am I a plotter or am I a pantser? And if you're not familiar with these terms, they get talked about a lot when people talk about writing and story structure and all these kinds of things. And so a plotter is basically what it says on the tin. It's a person who plots out their story, and a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. They don't do any planning, they just open up a blank document and get started. And so most writers tend to fall on a continuum between plotters or pantsers. And so what I tend to do is I'll have like a 1-page, maximum of 8 1-sentence dot points, like really brief things like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, the end. If I do a many page outline, I just find it useless. I find it tedious. It's not the real story, and so I don't feel invested in it. Like I don't want to do the work of it, but also if I don't do any planning at all, I'm gonna get overwhelmed by the story. I'm not gonna put any words on a page because I don't have any plan and I haven't done any sort of work before getting in and writing the prose of a story. And so for me, it's basically, I have this very, very loose outline, which I might follow. It's there if I need it, but I'm not beholden to it. Like it's not gonna tie me down to anything. And then of course I use a lot of visual planning tools, so I love Millernote. This video is obviously not sponsored by Millernote, but I use it all the time. It's really, really helpful for me. And then on top of that, what I do is when I sit down to write a new chapter, I'll kind of loosely plot out what I think is going to happen in the chapter. So I'll be like, I want this character to have this thing, I want this scene to be here, I want to meet this person, and I want the chapter to end this way. And then that's another like 5 or 6 dot points of just that specific chapter. And that's kind of how I try to wrangle myself into not overwriting the chapters specifically. So that's kind of my process for how I do these kinds of things. But again, because I'm constantly at war with wanting to put in everything under the sun, and I know I can't do that. I just have to manage the word counts, I have to manage the pacing of the story, and that's something that I just have to always be mindful of. But Tyler is not quite finished on work yet, so I'm just gonna keep going until it's time for us to have dinner. We're both very, very, very busy at the moment. Like I feel like that's just been life recently, but Tyler's working on multiple projects. He has Sage coming up this week, this Friday and this Saturday. So Sage is like a local South Australian games exhibition, and he's showing one of his games. He's working on this cool football game at the moment. So he's really, really busy. So I batch made dinner. So we're gonna have, so I feel like I always just make lasagna. You guys see me make the same like 3 meals over and over again. If I've had a long day at work being creative, doing all this stuff, I don't want to think about making dinner. I just want something easy, and the thing that's easy is the thing I know how to make, and so I just end up making the same things over and over again. But anyway, I love lasagna, so that's good. Gonna finish writing, gonna take my makeup off, make lasagna, maybe do some reading. That's the plan for the rest of today. I always feel so much better once I take my makeup off for the day, especially when my skin is being fun. Hello, friend. I love that sun cream gives me terrible pimples. I love that I live in the skin cancer capital of the world, where the UV is for some reason, I know the reason why. It's where we are on the earth. People think there's a hole in the ozone layer. The hole over Antarctica actually, but it's fine. It's the whole thing. The point is, in Australia, you need to wear sun cream. Like I've been to other places in the world. I've never been burnt as badly or as quickly as when I'm in Adelaide during the summertime. So I have to wear sun cream, but it just gives me pimples. Every single brand of sun cream gives me pimples. It doesn't matter what one it is. Anyway, let's go make dinner. Good evening. It is currently, I think like 9:46 p.m. it is currently, and I am probably going to do some reading. I just actually finished a book which is called Local Heavens. It's by an author whose name is Christy. She makes lovely videos, and I'll link her channel down below. It's a retelling of The Great Gatsby. It's a cyberpunk retelling. As a person who loves The Great Gatsby, who's read it a number of times, this was such a fun book to read. I love the world that she created. I loved the ending. I loved all the Easter eggs. I loved the way that she fleshed out some of the characters. It was just such a fun Gatsby retelling. Like I really enjoyed reading it. And this book is out in the fall of this year. That is not my autumn, but obviously the Northern Hemisphere autumn. Want to read? I probably should get up and go get it, but it's sitting on my bookshelf. God of the Woods by Liz Moore, Lismore? Yeah, anyway, I want to read that particular book. I've heard amazing things about it. Apparently it's this really compelling, engaging thriller set in the 1970s, like summer camp vibe. I have been wanting to get to this book for the last like 3 or 4 months. It's been sitting on my shelf. I've been wanting to read some new thrillers, and so I'm probably going to pick up that and I need to stop. You stay away. I want to pick up that particular book and get reading. It's been a lovely day, been super duper productive. I think I managed to crack most of chapter 3. Now it's been a little bit tough, as I've said, these kind of transition all chapters between the structures of the novel. I'm going to stop making sense because my brain is a little bit fried. I worked really hard today. There are these bits of the novel that they're very clearly signposted in my brain, and so moving from A to B to C can sometimes be a little bit hard. Like I remember writing Project Teacup, there was this one chapter in the first 3 or 4 drafts of the story. There was 40 chapters of Project Teacup, there are now more, but it was around chapter 35 and I had, you know, obviously like the whole book, and then I wanted to transition into this particular part of the ending and I just couldn't get the characters from this bit to that bit. And so I remember spending like 5 hours in the library writing and because I couldn't concentrate at home. It was really, really hard just writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting to try and make the logic points fit together. And this is one of the problems sometimes when you're part discovery writer, part outliner, because you know where the book is going to go, but sometimes you're not quite sure how to get people there. And it needs to make sense. It needs to feel authentic. It needs to feel like it's not shoehorned. Like the worst thing in the world is when you're reading it. Well, it's not the worst thing in the world, but a bad thing is when you're reading a book and it just feels like the author has forced things to happen. Like it feels really silly. So yeah, I spent hours writing and rewriting this chapter, and then 6 months later, because I got feedback on the novel, it was gone. I just removed it entirely. I simplified the ending, and sometimes that's just necessary. Sometimes you need to put in those hard yards to learn exactly the way you're supposed to eventually make the story go. So it's fun. I'm so excited about The Hotel for Hungry Ghosts. Like I'm really proud of this short story. I'm not going to reveal the themes and allegory of that story because it's kind of a spoiler for the end of it, but it's a big spoiler for the end of it, but it was a particular bit of allegory I wanted to explore with this story, which is quite close to my heart. So if you guys read it, I would so love to hear what you think of it, like how you interpreted it. I just find that really interesting. And I'm so proud of it, and I love the cover art. Like this is not a part of the sponsorship. It made me so happy when they sent that through to me. I thought that was so cool. Finally, before I go, I just wanted to also say a massive thank you to everyone over on Patreon for supporting my channel. Without the lovely people over on Patreon, I wouldn't be able to make these videos. And so as a thank you to all of those people, we have a whole bunch of stuff over on Patreon. We have a Discord server, we have our book club, we have a tier where I make bespoke videos for everyone. There's a whole bunch of lovely stuff over on Patreon. So if you'd like to check that out, there is a link in the description down below. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.